On today's show, Japan's innovative approach to their hydrogen strategy, the race for white hydrogen, and India's shift towards pink hydrogen. I'll focus on technical breakthroughs, economic potential, and research priorities with emissions impacts, looking at nuclear versus renewable energy projects. All this on today's Hydrogen Podcast. Our first story comes from The Print, published on May 3rd, exploring what Japan's evolving hydrogen strategy teaches us. Unlike many nations reserving hydrogen for hard-to-abate sectors like steel or shipping, Japan is pushing its use across power generation, gas blending, passenger vehicles, and even heating, aiming to lead the global hydrogen economy. Let's dive into the details of this multifaceted approach. Technically, Japan's strategy is built on a mix of domestic production and imports, adapting to its limited renewable resources. The Japan Atomic Energy Agency, or JAEA, is pioneering clean hydrogen production using its high-temperature engineering test reactor, or the HTTR. By 2028, JAEA plans to produce hydrogen via thermochemical water splitting at 900 degrees Celsius, leveraging the reactor's high heat to achieve 50% efficiency, surpassing the 40% efficiency of standard electrolysis, which typically requires 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram of hydrogen. A 100 megawatt HTTR could produce 2,000 tons of hydrogen annually, enough to power 500 Toyota Mirai sedans for a year, each with a 402-mile range on a 5-kilogram tank at 700 bar. This nuclear-driven process reduces electricity demand compared to electrolysis, making it ideal for a grid with limited renewable capacity. With Japan's solar and wind output averaging 20 to 25% capacity factor, this per industry data. For power generation, Japan is blending hydrogen into natural gas pipelines, targeting 20% hydrogen by volume by 2030. This requires retrofitting 10,000 kilometers of pipelines with hydrogen-compatible materials like polyethylene, ensuring safe transport at pressures up to 10 bar. A 1,000 megawatt gas turbine blending 20% hydrogen consumes 10,000 tons of hydrogen per year, reducing reliance on imported LNG, which makes up 30% of Japan's energy mix. In mobility, the Toyota Mirai and upcoming hydrogen trucks use fuel cells with 60% efficiency, consuming 1 kilogram per 50 miles. Japan's also piloting hydrogen in heating, with Kawasaki Heavy Industries developing burners that mix hydrogen with natural gas for residential use, aiming for 5% blending by 2027, potentially serving 1 million homes with 50,000 tons of hydrogen annually. On the import side, Japan sources 200,000 tons of hydrogen yearly from Australia, produced via brown coal gasification with carbon capture, which is a pragmatic move, though not fully green. Liquefied hydrogen is shipped at negative 253 degrees Celsius in specialized carriers, with a single ship carrying 10,000 tons, costing $500 million to build, this per industry estimates. Japan's Suiso Frontier, the world's first liquefied hydrogen carrier, has completed multiple trips, proving its tech's capability. Domestically, Japan aims to scale production to 3 million tons per year by 2040, combining nuclear, electrolysis, and imports, positioning itself as a hydrogen hub for Asia. Economically, this is a massive undertaking. Building a single hydrogen import terminal costs between $1 and $200 million, so scaling to 10 terminals for 3 million tons could cost between $1 to $2 billion. Retrofitting 10,000 kilometers of pipelines for blending adds another $1 to $2 billion, while upgrading nuclear reactors like the HTTR for hydrogen production costs $5 to $700 million per 100 megawatt facility. At $4 to $5 per kilogram, 3 million tons per year generates $12 to $15 billion in revenue, creating 15,000 to 20,000 jobs in infrastructure, manufacturing, and shipping. However, Japan's 80% import dependency, 160,000 of 200,000 tons in 2025, poses risks, as global supply chains could disrupt costs and brown coal hydrogen's carbon capture isn't 100% effective, raising questions about long-term sustainability. The narrative of Japan leading hydrogen is compelling, but its reliance on imports and high upfront costs highlight the need for global collaboration, a theme we'll see in the white hydrogen race next. Our second story comes from Yahoo News, published on May 3rd, titled Global Race for White Hydrogen. This article dives into the emerging excitement around white hydrogen, or naturally occurring hydrogen, trapped underground, described as a potential white gold rush that could revolutionize the energy sector. The technology behind white hydrogen is rooted in its geological origins. The article highlights that this hydrogen is formed naturally deep within the earth, with companies now racing to tap into these hidden reserves. A key example is a discovery in Mali where a well drilled in 1987 unexpectedly produced gas that was 97% hydrogen, a find that powered a village's electricity needs for over 3 decades. This natural occurrence has sparked interest, with the article noting that white hydrogen could be a game changer due to its potential abundance. The process involves drilling to access the underground deposits, a method likened to oil and gas extraction, though specific techniques are still being developed. The article doesn't provide exact production figures, but emphasizes the scalability potential, with companies betting on this resource to meet future energy demands. The race is intensifying globally. The article mentions that mining giants and oil majors are joining the fray, driven by the promise of a carbon-free energy source. A standout player is Koloma, a US-based startup that has attracted significant attention, raising over $300 million, including funding from Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy. This investment underscores the high stakes, with Koloma focusing its efforts on drilling in the United States, particularly in regions believed to hold substantial white hydrogen reserves. The article also points out that 40 companies were actively searching for these deposits in 2023, up from just 10 in 2020, reflecting breakthroughs reported in the past 12 months, suggesting that the technology and extraction methods are still in early stages. Economically, the potential is significant, but uncertain. The article suggests that white hydrogen could be produced at a lower cost than other forms of hydrogen, positioning it as a competitive energy source. While specific cost figures aren't provided, the implication is that its natural occurrence could reduce production expenses compared to manufactured hydrogen like green or blue variants. If scaled to 1 million tons per year, a hypothetical target based on the article's emphasis on abundance, this could generate substantial revenue, potentially in the billions, though exact estimates are speculative without further data. The creation of jobs is another economic highlight, with the article indicating that the exploration and development could lead to thousands of new positions in drilling, infrastructure, and related industries. However, the lack of progress over the past year hints at challenges, including the need for significant investment in unproven technology, which could increase costs and delay commercialization. The narrative of the white gold rush is enticing, but the article's note on stalled progress suggests a need for patience and innovation to turn this promise into reality, setting the stage for India's strategic pivot in our next segment. Our third story comes from Money Control on May 2nd, which dives deep into India's pivot to pink hydrogen as its green hydrogen mission struggles. Let's unpack this, focusing on the use of nuclear-powered electrolyzers, a more reliable energy source than renewables, and compare the particulate emissions from developing nuclear plants versus solar and wind farms. Pink hydrogen, which is produced via electrolysis using nuclear power, is emerging as a viable option for India's net zero goal by 2070. The National Green Hydrogen Mission aims for 5 million tons a year by 2030, but is faltering. Offtake agreements are lagging, with only 412,000 tons of derivatives committed to Japan and Singapore. This per Minister Prahlad Joshi. Green hydrogen, which is reliant on solar and wind, faces challenges: inconsistent energy supply and site constraints near refineries requiring large land footprints. Nuclear power offers a solution. Its 90% capacity factor versus 25 to 30% for renewables ensures steady 24/7 power at 2 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, this is per industry data. Technically, nuclear-powered electrolyzers are a game changer. A 1 gigawatt nuclear plant, like those planned with private sector entry, can power 200 megawatts of PEM electrolyzers, producing 40,000 tons of hydrogen per year at 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram, enough for 10,000 trucks driving 500 miles daily. Excess nuclear capacity, often underutilized at 60 to 70% load, can be tapped, with plants like Kudankulam ideal for co-locating electrolyzers, avoiding the land and grid issues of renewables. India's 7.5 gigawatt nuclear fleet could scale to 20 gigawatts by 2030, this per government plans, yielding 1.6 million tons per year, surpassing green targets. Oil PSUs like Reliance are exploring this, leveraging nuclear's stability for industrial applications like ammonia production. But let's step away and compare particulate emissions from developing a nuclear plant versus a solar or wind farm, focusing first on PM2.5, which are fine particulates linked to air quality issues. Building a 1 gigawatt nuclear plant involves concrete production, heavy machinery, and transport, emitting about 50,000 tons of PM2.5 over a 5 to 10 year construction period. This per life cycle analysis from the EPA and the DOE. A 1 gigawatt solar farm requiring 5,000 acres involves land clearing, panel manufacturing, and installation, emitting about 30,000 tons of PM2.5, 40% less than nuclear, due to less concrete and shorter timelines, about 2 to 3 years. And a 1 gigawatt wind farm spread over 10,000 acres emits even less, about 20,000 tons of PM2.5, because turbines use fewer materials, though land disturbances can stir dust. However, nuclear's operational phase is cleaner. 0 PM2.5, NOx, or SOx versus solar and wind's indirect emissions from maintenance, about 500 to 1,000 tons of PM2.5 per year for 1 gigawatt. Over 30 years, nuclear's total PM2.5 is still 50,000 tons, while solar and wind reach 45,000 and 35,000 respectively, narrowing the gap. So nuclear's steady output makes it a better fit for pink hydrogen despite higher construction emissions. Economically, pink hydrogen is promising. At $4 to $5 a kilogram, 1.6 million tons a year generates $6.4 to $8 billion in revenue, creating 8,000 to 12,000 jobs. Nuclear electrolyzer plants cost between $300 and $400 million per 200 megawatts. But leveraging excess capacity saves $60 to $120 million, or 20 to 30% less than green hydrogen's $7 to $8 billion for 5 million tons. Nuclear's reliability could outpace renewables, though safety and private sector hesitancy remain challenges. All right, that's it for me, everyone. If you have a second, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a good review on whatever platform it is that you listen to. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, whatever it is. That would be a tremendous help to the show. And as always, if you ever have any feedback, you're welcome to email me directly at info@thehydrogenpodcast.com. So until next time, keep your eyes up and honor one another.